All right. Moving on, we are the biggest thing as far as interviews go in the nerd space. We're bringing back in, but yet still about the culture. Jonathan Majors is speaking out for the first time after the conviction in the domestic violence trial. This, on its own, I don't think is the biggest, most intriguing thing. Like, we'll hear what he has to say. He's probably sorry. You know, I didn't mean to do it. People don't understand, blah, 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 blah. The usual stuff, right? What is the interesting part here? We always got to look. What is behind the curtain? What's up, Creativity? Good to see you. What's up, Nolan? Good to see you. Here on the channel, I always want to see what's behind the curtain. My third influence, Eugene S. Robinson. That's his thing there. I don't care about what's happening here. What's going on back there? This interview, the first interview that Jonathan Majors is doing post the conviction, is on ABC News. The interview clips have already broken this morning on Good Morning America. Good Morning America, owned by Disney. What? What? That is the most perplexing thing I've ever seen. They fired him immediately when the verdict came out. But they are the first ones to do the interview with him. First ones. What is the play here? What is the play?
Since he was convicted of misdemeanor reckless assault and harassment, and there's really a lot to unpack here. He calls the 2-year relationship with Grace Jabari toxic, dangerous, and unhealthy, but he is adamant. He says there was absolutely no physical abuse.
I told you, time isn't what you think.
Less than a year ago, the name Jonathan Majors was followed by... The actor spoke exclusively with ABC News for the first time after being convicted in late December for harassment and misdemeanor reckless assault in the 3rd degree, which could carry a penalty of up to a year behind bars.
Why did you decide you wanted to talk now?
I felt like it was time. A lot has happened in my personal life, in my career, in the culture. It's about responsibility and coming forward and being brave and giving my part of the story.
Is it me, or did that not look like his intro scene in Loki season 1? Oh, so much has happened. So much for us to discuss. Welcome. Have a seat, please. I was waiting for you. That's what I just saw. Literally what I just saw. This immediately looks staged. It looks absolutely staged. And I immediately don't believe anybody that's sitting there right now. Her and him. I believe none of them immediately. But we'll proceed.
Your reaction to that verdict?
Shock. I was absolutely shocked. And afraid. And I'm standing there, and the verdict comes down. I say, how is that possible? Based off the evidence, based off the prosecution's evidence, let alone our evidence. How is that possible?
But after only hours of deliberation, a jury of his peers agreed with prosecutors that he did physically injure his then-girlfriend Grace Jabari in an incident last March.
What happened exactly, do you know?
No, I don't know. But she's unconscious.
That 911 call from Majors came hours after an argument broke out with Jabari in the back seat of an SUV, when Majors received a text from another woman saying, "Oh, how I wish to be kissing you." Jabari testified that when she grabbed the phone, Majors tried to get it back, fracturing her finger and giving her a cut behind her ear.
So one of the rumors that has been going around Hollywood, aka Twitter, aka X, is that Majors is not the greatest person to be talking to be dealing with, to be working with. And it's funny, those of you who are in a relationship, imagine what your partner would do, your current partner would do, if you got a text like that and they were like, whoa, what is that? Took your phone, and then you grab that phone back. I mean, we all know what's happening. We all know what's happening. And immediately it is your fault, sir. Immediately it's your fault. Just on that one aspect alone of the relationship falling apart, whatever. Like she could have done whatever. But this you got caught. You got caught. Ripping the phone out, making a scene, you got caught.
She says inside the car, you hit her in the face,
Yeah.
twist her arm behind her back, fracture her middle finger.
Yeah, that did not happen.
How did those injuries come about?
I wish to God I knew. That would give clarity. That would give me some type of peace about it.
But you're confident you didn't
I have
cause
no
them.
question.
Surveillance video shows Majors getting out of the car, followed by Jabari, whom he then puts back inside the vehicle. What happens next is what the defense remains focused on. Majors runs off, and Jabari chases after him.
If you watch those videos,
So, sorry to interrupt on this part here. What he's about to say is 100% accurate. 100% accurate. And the problem with what he's about to say is that it's tied to what we've heard so far. And it's a scenario where I hate when, in my opinion, people tie real issues, real things that are not to be joked with bullshit. They tie it to the bullshit so that you think the entire thing is real. When really everything that has happened is your fault, and you're going to say, well, obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but this thing happened, and like we're all victims here. This pisses me off. Absolutely pisses me off.
and you reverse that, and you saw a black man chasing a young white girl down the street, screaming and crying, that man is going to be shot and killed in the streets of New York City.
Major's defense team shared these photos, which he says show the injuries he received that night, which were deemed inadmissible in court. How were you injured?
My injuries were, I had a scratch on my hand, from clawing for the phone, and I had a gash on my, at the time I had a beard. Under my beard, I had essentially a fingernail scratch on my cheek from pressure, and that bled overnight.
But prosecutors say Majors was the aggressor. District Attorney Alvin Bragg says the evidence presented throughout this trial illustrated a cycle of psychological and emotional abuse. In court, prosecutors pointed to a previous argument during which he knocked a candle to the floor.
I completely lost my temper in that moment and threw it all on the ground. That's not something I would want my child to do, and I did that. I absolutely did that, and felt terrible about it.
The prosecution also played audio Jabari had recorded earlier in the relationship where Majors encouraged.
This part here is absolutely wild. This part here is the same shit. You are tying real issues. You're tying real issues into your bullshit. Because let's not forget, this whole thing, to our understanding, based on what we've seen here in this publicly released video, stems from you got caught. You got caught.
encouraged her to act more like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama.
I'm a great man. A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. The woman that's...
By the way, that wasn't me sniffling. I know I'm kind of stuffy. That was her sniffling or crying as she's recording this.
supports me needs to be a great woman.
There are some who question, especially in the black community, as you're probably well aware, that people were saying, well, why was he telling this woman to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama?
It was me trying to give an analogy of what it is I'm aspiring to be. You know, these great men, Martin, President Obama, and trying to give a reference point to that. One of the things I also say is, like, I need her, in that case, Grace, to make the same sacrifices that I am making.
In a statement to ABC News, an attorney for Jabari said in part, it is not at all surprising that Mr. Majors continues to take no accountability for his actions, adding, the timing of these new statements demonstrates a clear lack of remorse for his actions.
Do you feel you're not responsible for her injuries at all?
I shouldn't have been in the car. I shouldn't have stepped out of the relationship. I shouldn't have been in the relationship. If I'm not in the car, none of this is happening. If I leave the relationship, none of this is happening. If I'm man enough or brave enough to say, I want to see somebody else, or I'm done now, I'm not in that car. We're not here. I'm responsible for those things.
But none of her injuries.
I can't say that. None of her injuries.
It's embarrassing. It is truly embarrassing. We talk about this all the time on the channel, and it's funny because people will see some of the memes I make, some of the memes posted on TikTok, on Instagram. By the way, shout out to Henry. Good to see you. And I'm sure you've done your stream already about it. If you've not, you guys should definitely check out Henry Resilient. He breaks all these type of things down, like step by step. That's who you want to watch for more detail on this. Despite the jokes I make on the channel, people sometimes think I don't think representation is important. Representation is extremely important. Extremely important. I want more of it. I hate when it's used as a gimmick and used not in a genuine way. It's being used just to like try to make coin, right? It's not really there. What he's saying, where he's like, what I'm doing is for the culture, it's not a completely false statement. The main villain of the MCU being a person of color is a big deal at the end of the day. It is a big deal. However, Kang is also not that guy. You are that guy. I'm not that guy. Kang is not that guy, right? Kang is not that big of a deal, right? If Chadwick was caught up in something and Chadwick was like, I need to get out of this situation because what I'm doing for the culture, for kids, for people is bigger than you, that is 100% accurate, 1,000% accurate. Jonathan Majors, in my opinion, he's kind of full of himself. He's kind of full of himself and thinks that what he's doing is the same, but it's not coming from a genuine place. My perception. And ultimately, he even said it there. He literally was unfaithful, got caught, and freaked out on her. Freaked out on her. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. And somebody said it there, like, was it Henry that said it? Fumbled 200 million in seconds. Own up to it, man. Own up to it. I was a piece of shit. Now, if he can't say that he caused those injuries because the parts of the case are still pending, or he got off on those things when he knows he did it, I get it. But own up to it. I'm a piece of shit. I need to do better. Domestic violence is not something to be joked about. Domestic violence is not, whatever. This interview, Disney being the one to do this and releasing it and them rehearsing this garbage does no favors to anybody. It does no favors to him, to Disney if they bring him back, to anybody. Nothing. If anything, this interview, in my opinion, does more damage than it does good. Because there is no person who's been in an abusive relationship who watches this video, this interview, and doesn't say to themselves, he's the problem. Nobody. And to me, if I was Disney and he came to me and said, hey, I want to do an interview to set the record straight, I'd say no. Like, sorry, we are not the outlet for that, because unless you were the victim and we have to retract firing you, there's no good outcome here. There's no good outcome here. So if she was beating him, if there were videos, police records of her beating him and she got injured because he defended himself in that video with the van, completely different story. But that's not the case. It is not the case. My man got caught. My man had previously already had some issues going on with her and in behind the scenes, allegedly. But this is all you, dude. This is literally all you. You got caught. You got mad you got caught. She took your phone. You were like, that's mine. And you heard her by mistake. I'll give you that potentially, like 5% chance you did it by mistake. But there was real aggression there. If you fracture a finger, arm twisted behind it, like, oh, I didn't twist her arm behind, like, sorry, piece of shit. So something else would have to come out. She would have to say something to make this not make him look bad. But right now, I'm good on Jonathan Majors. I'm absolutely good. Full interview for that comes out tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, allegedly, according to Google. So the clip is over at abc.com now that I showed you, but the full interview will be out tonight. And again, that's an interview. She has her question. She asks him the question. He answers it. She asks the next question, because the next question is tied to the previous one. And we keep elaborating. Not a conversation. Oh, God. Disney's a mess. Absolute mess.